Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broadway Jets YouTube channel. You'll know me from Twitter as NYJ Mike. I'm joined as always by the master of receipts, NYJ Matt. And Matt, the New York Jets don't have a coach under contract. We're going to do some interviews. Mike Vrabel was in the building today in Florham Park. Well, we're not going to do the interviews, but the Jets are. And we have a whole list of coaches right there that Matt beautifully clipped out in little squares. And we're going to tier list them of who we want to be the next head coach of the New York Jets.
Always look forward to a good tier list, Mike. If you aren't subscribed yet, go check and see if you are on the road to 2K subscribers. So, Mike, I think everyone watching this would probably have their own ranking. There's no perfect ranking for all the coaches that I listed here.
Except for
I'm assuming
list.
It's going to be one of these guys. And, Mike, you and I agree on 99% of Jet-related things. We might differ here between where we want to tier these different head coaches. So, we'll try to rip it in 20 to 30 minutes. We'll go through each one, and then I think we're good to kick it off. Like, anything that you want to add before we get going?
Any coaches? We were thinking this morning. I mean, there were some funny ones that we were going to put on here, but I feel like we have the main guys accounted for. The Jets already interviewed Ron Rivera and obviously Vrabel. I think it's pretty good, Matt. You have most of it covered.
Yep, and we have the ability to change midstream, right? If we think a guy's in B and we want to knock him down, knock him up, we can do that. And, of course, in the comments, let us know where we got it wrong, where we got it right. Like I said, on the road to 2K subscribers. So if you can check right now, hit that subscribe button. But, Mike, first up, we have Mike McCarthy here. I feel like you're one of the more pro Mike McCarthy guys out there. Not saying that, again, you think he should be the head coach of the Jets, but what's your initial take on Mike McCarthy if he is fired, which there's no guarantee?
Well, I wanted McCarthy last time, but he's like these guys is a proven dude. He won a Super Bowl. The critique is that he only won one Super Bowl with a great quarterback. But even the last few years with the Cowboys, he won 12 games the last 3 years before this. So I'll take fucking 12 wins. I don't know, probably more of like a C kind of guy or B. I think B right in the middle.
I was thinking B right in the middle. And
I was
it
thinking
might be
like C in a grading scale. Yeah.
It might be a lower tier B. And we'll see where everybody else lands. We want to keep it proportional. But my note on him, again, 12 wins in 3 straight years. The obvious knock is getting into the playoffs. Once they're there, they haven't performed with good rosters and good teams. But, I mean, if you have a pretty steady guy, you are looking for that CEO culture builder. And Mike McCarthy is a winner, right? He wins
You know what
games.
his record is, Matt, all time?
No.
177 and 111.
It's very good. But there's it's almost
174.
like a meme, though, of him. Like Mike McCarthy, if you just think of him, people probably think, oh, he's a 500 boring coach, when that's not the case. But again, not our top option.
He's
right?
lost some tough games, too. Like, you think about 2016, the Packers lost in the NFC Championship game to the Seahawks with the Brandon Bostic. If you just catch the onside kick, you're in the Super Bowl. Like, that's it. It's not coaching unless you got to do more onside kicks in practice. But what else do we got?
Yeah, McCarthy a B. Mike, I've just keep coming back to Vrabel being my guy, the CEO guy, building your program and changing your culture. People also label him like a Belichick guy. Not necessarily. He does things differently. He's stern. He's very, I guess, requires a lot from his players. I listened to him on Bussin' with the Boys just to get some more content from Vrabel today. And Taylor Lewan basically said, I hated you the first year. Like, you were building your culture. I did not like you. And that's their starting left tackle. And now he's his best friend. So it took time for that rebuild to happen. And if you're going to have, we'll go through a few names, but if you're a Sauce Gardner, a Garrett Wilson, who also went to Ohio State, I feel like they can connect with this type of coach versus some of the other ones that we'll get to. And I think they could buy in. So, Mike, for me, Vrabel is a clear S-tier candidate here.
Yeah, he's my number one for all those reasons you mentioned. Success with the Titans. Like, no one's resume is going to stand up to McCarthy, for example. But also, Mike Vrabel never had Aaron Rodgers. He could have Aaron Rodgers now if he wants. That's exciting. Rosenblatt reported that Vrabel wanted a communication with the owner and then like a stream of communication with the GM plus the owner and a quarterback. So like if Woody's like, hey, I'm not going to be an asshole, that's pretty much it. So He was there today. That's the guy. Even the 2 years he lost in the playoffs, they lost by a touchdown to the Ravens with Lamar, and they lost by a field goal to Joe Burrow's Bengals the year that they went to the Super Bowl. So
wasn't there the other year where they lost in Arrowhead and they were up 17-0?
that might have been the championship game of 2019. Let's see. They did lose to the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and they were winning 17-7.
It might have been. Oh, I thought it might have been higher too.
Well, the
17.
Texans had one year that they blew a 24-0 lead to the
That
Chiefs.
could be it. That could be it. So, Vrabel, S tier, our number one guy. Aaron Glenn, I feel as if before the year, a lot of Jet fans would be like, that would be a prime candidate if Vrabel's off the board. The one knock on Aaron Glenn is his defensive numbers in Detroit have not been good. And you can chalk it up to maybe that the Lions score at will and the defense is on the field a lot because the Lions just consistently get off the field after scoring touchdowns. But Mike, 29th, 32nd, 19th, and 22nd in yards, and points aren't that much better, at least in his first 3 years. This year, they are 9th in points allowed, which is good. But one thing about Aaron Glenn, their run defense every year is second, third in the NFL. Under him. So they've been very strong the last 2 years on the run defense. Mike, where does Aaron Glenn fit into your tier list here?
He's probably higher on our list than most other people because of the connection to the Jets. Maybe high tier B. I just don't want a first-time coach. That's like the good thing about Vrabel is he's kind of the mid between all these young, newer coaches that have never coached before and like the McCarthys of the world that have a track record because he has a good track record and he's like a younger, cooler guy. So, like, of Glenn, I would be okay if they hired Aaron Glenn. You got to get a great offensive coordinator. You mentioned the numbers in Detroit. Like, this year's the most impressive because they have 1,000 guys hurt, and they're, like, 9th in scoring defense. So, but again, it helps when your offense is moving up and down the field. And maybe you get some of the Detroit front office people to come along with him or some players. So maybe that's a positive, but I don't know. I'm less high on Aaron Glenn than others. I really don't. I'm not in the mood to have a first-time head coach.
Yeah, and a lot of people compare him to the solid framework of being a defensive coordinator, being a players type coach. Do you get a retread with him? Honestly, like when I first started putting this together, I knew he was going to be A or B, but he almost kicked into that A tier. So we'll see where the rest fall. But a hire that we would not be upset with. I think that.
Yeah, I get it. I understand why they would do it. Be fiery, change the culture, yada yada yada. Maybe the guys buy in. Like you said, you're hiring a defensive coordinator who is in the bottom half of the league in yards allowed the last 4 years. So
yeah,
that's where it comes down to me. Fucking awesome Jet. It's like if the Jets hired Cromartie as their head coach in a few years, like it's cool. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, speaking of finishing in the bottom of the league, Matt Nagy, his final 3 years in Chicago. 29th, 25th, 26th in offensive yards. Bad last couple of years in Chicago after a good first year. The double doink is things that we've talked about before. What could have been, maybe they go on a run. Maybe he looks a little bit better. But an uninspiring candidate for me, Mike. I know we talked about it, I think, briefly on either a previous episode, where it's not like Matt Nagy is the worst coach ever. His track record doesn't prove that. But it's uninspiring for me, and I think he would go in C or D. Just looking at the other guys on the list here.
Because what is he now? Is he with the Kansas City?
Yep.
So you have that. So it's like you're working with Andy Reid, and we did talk about it on the show last pod. I don't know did we post that podcast?
I don't think so.
But basically, he won 12 games with Mitch Trubisky and should have beat the Eagles in the playoffs. And who knows what happens? Maybe you go to the maybe you win the Super Bowl. Who the hell knows? So that was a double doink here that you said. It was a 43-yard field goal from Cody Parkey. The Bears fans remember too well. I don't think anyone's going to be over the top excited about that hire, but I don't think it's quite as insane or horrific as other people say, Yeah,
I think that's fair. So I would go C tier tentatively for now.
Yeah.
We'll see where people land. I want to put Ulbrich in the D tier. Ulbrich is a nice guy. Probably a good dude in 10 games. I guess more now. Going to be 13 games. No, 12 games. Whatever it is. He hasn't shown that he can manage a game, time management, going for it when you should. It just feels off. Ulbrich, thank you for your...
It's awful, dude.
Yeah, thank you for your service, but you're in the D tier.
It's literally awful. We should make a new tier because you can't take this team and go 2-9, especially where we got the better of Aaron Rodgers in that stretch, and you're still 2-9 as a coach. It's insane. It's sick. The dude in the last 9 games has 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and you're 2-7 with all these guys that we keep talking about. What a waste. We should hate him more, but he's not an asshole, so it's not necessary.
It's tough. Let's move over to Brian Flores. So I want to make the case for Brian Flores to start.
Right.
Has been a head coach, check. Can be a culture CEO type leader, check. The negative is the regression of Tua and some of the things that leaked out with him and Tua. We're pretty high on Tua compared to the rest of the Jet fan base. He looked like a different quarterback under Flores for a long stretch of times. But, Mike, I think Flores is a low-tier A candidate or high-tier B candidate based on the first two things that I referenced. I know it's not maybe the sexy pick, but do I love it? Maybe not love it, but I would be fine with it, kind of similar to an Aaron Glenn, Mike McCarthy, and I think I'd actually pick him above those two.
Yeah, that was fair. Listen, he checks our box that he was formerly a coach. I agree with you. I don't think the people like to say, oh, he put Tua in his place, whatever. I think that's the opposite of a flex. The whole Tua situation is his biggest negative to me because, like you said, Tua went on to literally lead the league in passing yards after Flores left. And they had some success together. They were 10-6 one year, partially with Fitz, partially with Tua. And then the next year they start 1-7, and then they win 8 out of 9 and miss the playoffs in the last week.
That matters, Mike. Like he didn't lose the team when they're 1-8.
It matters.
Or 1-7. That is a huge win for him. I agree. So I think he's a low tier A guy right now, and I would again take him.
He was a surprise fire.
Yeah, for sure.
People were surprised when they fired him, and then, in fairness, McDaniel took over, and the Dolphins started 8-3 and made the playoffs the next year. And then Tua really improved the next year when they won 11 games. So, it's interesting. Is he going to develop a quarterback? Is he going to piss everyone off? Did he calm down the last couple of years? The Vikings defense is unbelievable, and it's not like they have the greatest roster of all time. So on defense, very, very impressive this year.
I like it. I think he's a good A-tier candidate. For Dion, I threw him on here as a joke. I don't think Dion's ever going to happen.
Dion is in the F.
I think Dion is a D tier for one reason only. I don't think New York can survive a Deion Sanders tenure just with the media, with everything going on.
The only way it would work is if they were just somehow great the whole time. Then it would be fine.
Yeah, I think that's a D tier pick. The other guy that we can throw in here that has actually interviewed for the job is Ron Rivera. So, Mike, give me your Ron Rivera take here.
Listen, Ron Rivera also went to the Super Bowl, and his number one receiver was Ted Ginn, and he had Jericho Cotcher, and he was 35.
And Devin Funchess.
He's coached an MVP quarterback. He's coached different sorts of teams. He made the playoffs with Washington, but they weren't that good. He's had some good defenses in Washington. Those Panthers teams are obviously pretty good. Again, one of those guys, I don't think he's quite as horrific. You see people are like, I will never watch the Jets again if you hire Ron Rivera. It's not like insane to hire a coach that went to the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily want him. Maybe you put him above Nagy in the C column.
That's where I was going to land him for sure. That's where he goes. And you can make the argument on any given day that you could flip Ron Rivera and Mike McCarthy. Like, it's pick your poison. I think Mike McCarthy's more proven, but
I think the Mike McCarthy stuff is like a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. Your thing is the play calling
winning percentage.
What bothers me is when you don't have conviction as a play caller. Like, there's so many times where you get a report of Mike McCarthy is calling the plays, and this week he's not calling them, and he gave it to someone else so he can focus more on the head coach. It's very like that part.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. Like, Andy Reid's going to call the plays, and Andy Reid will be the guy in charge. It's an interesting scenario when it comes to Mike McCarthy, but I agree. Ron Rivera in the C tier, hanging out there.
Ron Rivera, 2-time coach of the year. He went 15-1. He is 102 and 103 as a head coach. It's an interesting stat. But he was 26-40 in the last stint with Washington. So it's tough to have a third-time retread 64-year-old head coach. I understand why people don't want it. But that's why McCarthy's more attractive to me, because he left the Rodgers situation and then has a 58% winning percentage with Dallas. So similar market too.
Yeah, now let's get into the Ben Johnson debate. Mike, I don't want a first-time head coach, but every time I watch Detroit play football, they're just doing things that seem to be impossible. The play calling, Ben Johnson in his 3 years, fourth in yards, third in yards, second in yards, and then fifth in points, first in points. So all three main offensive categories, you're the play caller, they're top 5 in everything. I'm not trying to put him in the S tier, but I really would keep him in that A tier
Now, he
because
should be the S tier. This is the number one coordinator.
you think S tier.
Yes, this time it makes sense. Like we said, the opposite of Aaron Glenn. This guy has his offense in unbelievable situations. It's like the opposite. When the Jets hired, I remember the Jets hired Tony Sparano to be their offensive coordinator from the Dolphins, and he was like 30th in offense the year before. This is the opposite. This is an unbelievable offensive coach who has only produced. And, the Lions have a very talented team, but it's not like these guys all started that way. Jared Goff was a throwaway in a Matt Stafford trade. Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of came out of nowhere. Like David Montgomery, you signed from the Bears. It's not like they have the most star-studded team of all time, and then now these guys are all studs. And plus, the Jets' offense moving forwards is not so far away from the Lions' offense in that they have a good offensive line, the Jets, moving forward. So if you need a guy like this who's going to do the play action and establish the run, and then you have no idea tendency breaking, you can do it if you're the Jets moving forward if the offensive line is what they are.
I agree. But here's why I considered A tier for him. The floor of McCarthy and Flores is higher than Ben Johnson.
By far.
By far, right? You don't know what you're going to get with a first-time head coach, how he's going to command the room. I mean, every Lions player loves this guy. So you're going to assume he comes in here. But again, if he's in New York and they go with the rookie quarterback or they go with a bridge quarterback not named Aaron Rodgers and they start 1-4, like the city's on fire.
Yeah, I don't know. Right, exactly.
The city's on fire. So
100%.
You're good with S tier for now.
Is he going to turn to Adam Gase? Is he going to be an asshole at the press conference? Is he going to not look at the players on the sideline? Like, he does seem like a bit of a cocky dude in terms of the demands. I don't know so much about him. We don't watch like Lions interviews, so that's difficult. But no, it seems like it would be a good hire. It's one of those hires where you can't kill it. In fact, you'd probably be excited about it, and then you look to see what they do. It's not a great year to pair him up with a rookie quarterback if you're the Jets, picking where you're going to pick, unless some weird shit happens on Sunday. But
I like what we're building here, Mike. I like this. I like the chemistry we have, the distribution across the list. Where do we want to put Bobby Slowick? He is the Texans offensive coordinator. He finished 12th and 13th in yards back-to-back years, 21st and 18th in points. Young offensive mind. Feels like the Timu Ben Johnson. Where are we putting him?
We have Ben Johnson at home.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The biggest knock on Slowick is that CJ Stroud has taken somewhat of a step back this year. Yep. So after last year, he's one of the hottest candidates. And now, you look at CJ Stroud and he has 3,500 yards and 19 touchdowns and 12 picks or whatever he has. And it's not quite as exciting. Guys like Joe Mixon did have a great year. Their offensive line's weird. Diggs got hurt. Nico Collins got hurt. These things matter. Context matters. I don't think it's a horrible hire, but I agree with you. It's like a less enticing version of a guy like Ben Johnson who has no blemishes. Bobby Slowick, good couple years, few blemishes.
And it's weird because it feels as if the Patriots fire Mayo, Vrabel can go there, and Ben Johnson could go to the Giants or Chicago. And then you can look at, like, once you start going down and they don't think McCarthy is a sexy pick, who they did interview in 2019, as they did Todd Monken, that we'll get to in a moment. Do they end up with a guy like Bobby Slowick? That's very, very possible that they end up with a guy like him if these dominoes start to fall in front of you. I'm glad that they got ahead of it and they're interviewing Vrabel and they can get to these guys when they can. But I think it's B or C tier for me. And
I agree.
I'm leaning high C tier to be transparent.
Yeah, because he's one of the lower. Again, it's just so hard. We don't know if these coordinators are going to become a good. Like, I don't know if he's a good speaker in the room. I literally have no idea. Obviously, the offensive coordinator talks to the team and he calls plays. So, but it's just scary and like you just can't miss again.
Yeah, and that's like guy like
This
Cliff
is
Kingsbury.
this is like trying to find a girlfriend at 32, and you're just if you miss again, then what now? Then we kick the can down the road again, and I'm getting there, Matt.
We got 3 to 4 years for you, brother. We got to get there.
I'm just hiring Robert Saleh now in my timeline. So the next girl I go out with is destined to be Robert Saleh, and then she's gonna tear her Achilles. What is gonna happen?
It maybe we'll find out. Cliff Kingsbury, I think he was also interviewed in 2019 during that cycle where they took Adam Gase. Kingsbury had a very good interview this week when they talked about what he learned from his first head coaching stint. He was very honest and said, I took for granted how hard it is to build a culture and not put my fingerprints on everything. And once a year or two goes by, you lose the ability to build that with who's in the room. So he seems like he has like a second wind. He wants it again. But for me, Mike, not now.
I get it. This is actually a very interesting guy. It depends what you're going to – I don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback. So that is like he's a odd one. But he was very exciting. And I remember Drew from Jersey has that pinned tweet where it's like –
great tweet.
Draft Mahomes, get Cliff Kingsbury, like score the touchdowns, get all the bitches or something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, no, like remember the Cardinals were what 7-0, like 10-2 that one year with Kingsbury, and had the offense moving. Kyler Murray has developed into a real quarterback, so that's a plus on his ledger. I don't know if Kyler's been quite as dominant as people would have thought, but anytime you have a guy consistently throwing for around 4,000 yards and winning 8, 9, 10 games, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'd probably rather have him. Like I'd rather have him than Bobby Slowick.
It's not crazy. Not crazy because he's done it before, and he actually did it, and he won for a stretch of games.
He won 11 games. He made the playoffs. That was a real team, and they did fall apart, but, you know, I wouldn't hate that. I think I'd rather have McCarthy than him, though.
All right, one more younger guy until we get to the older crew here. Liam Cohen, 2022 was bad with the Rams, but that was that weird year where wasn't Baker starting on like a really short week for the Rams in 2022, and it wasn't good statistically, but
Stafford was hurt.
He had a second life in Tampa, right? 3rd in yards, 4th in points this year. So Buccaneers are moving the ball with a guy that a lot of teams gave up on in Baker Mayfield. So one, good for him. Hasn't been a head coach before. So do you put him at the low B, high C tier? That's where I feel a little more confident in a guy like him than over Bobby Slowick, personally.
Well, I think the best thing about him is that the Bucs, like you said, are scoring a ton of points. Baker Mayfield has 39 touchdowns this year, and Todd Bowles is the complete opposite of an offensive head coach. So,
great point.
Like that, like it's all him. Which, you know, and he learned from McVay. So very interesting. That is. Other than that, I don't know too much about him. To be honest,
like a low B tier for him. I don't know. It just feels like he belongs in this.
Low B. I would put McCarthy. I'd rather have Mike McCarthy than him. If you want to change it, you can. I just can't get over the fact the guy's like 70 games over 500 in football, and no one gives a shit.
Yep. And now we get the older crew. Oh, you have another take on?
Not really. It's the same thing, McCarthy. It's like you got to win the big games, but there's always football. The ball bounces a certain way, and your legacy is different forever. So,
yeah. So look, John Gruden. I don't know why. Like it would excite me if they got John Gruden. I'm
A tier, dude.
You're A tier with Gruden?
I'm A tier, baby.
Oh, I'm going lower.
Yeah.
I'm thinking above McCarthy in the B tier.
I would love John Gruden.
I like him. I love him, but it's just like you put a lot of faith into a guy that is currently suing the NFL. Like litigation is occurring with John Gruden in the NFL. Hard to put him as like a top tier guy, in my opinion.
I get it. And also his second stint in Oakland is not great. Vegas. But they were on the up and up when he got fired, and hopefully he doesn't call like Garrett Wilson a slur or something.
That's the other thing with him. There's like a legit character concern with John Gruden. Now those emails that leak and that the whole litigation that's going to occur, it almost feels like an NA. Like I don't think they even could hire him. But yeah, you also run the risk of alienating your locker room if these guys don't buy in, given his prior comments. So B might be where he lives, that's why I was even going to go high C tier because I just don't think it's feasible.
I get it. He was the interesting thing about Gruden is he was a great offensive coordinator before he was a head coach. Then his Raiders teams had great offenses, and he won the Super Bowl with Tampa with like the best defense ever. So that's obviously many, many years ago, and he was having some remedial success with the Raiders in the late 20 teens and early 2020s. I like a legend of the game. He is so passionate about football. I don't know. It would be interesting. I think it would be fun and interesting, and that's why I also would have Rex in the A tier. I would love Rex.
We'll get to Rex. I have a few more Gruden points.
Is that two Rexes?
No, Todd Monken is on the end.
Todd Monken looks exactly like Rex when
he looks like skinny Rex. You're right.
I thought you put fat and skinny Rex, but that other Rex is also not that fat.
The biggest pro for John Gruden, in my opinion, is that every single person on the list loves football. Obviously, passion. They've been doing it for years. I actually believe that John Gruden would sacrifice his entire family to like get 4 yards on first down. Like I believe he loves football that much. When you have a guy, maybe the players buy in. So I think Gruden actually fits well in the B tier. I'm happy where that goes. We'll save Rex for the end. Pete Carroll, Mike. Let's go with Pete.
S tier.
Really?
Hall of Fame coach.
You can't have. You got to have like a distribution.
Why do I have to have it? I could have 8 guys in the S tier if they're great. You like A? I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. This is like when like Mike Tomlin, there were rumors that he could be available, and so, not that you're saying this, but some Jeffrey's like, oh, we don't need that, whatever. This is unbelievable. Like, what if we said 5 years ago we'd have Pete Carroll? We'd say, oh my god, of course. I wish. Now that he's unemployed, we're not putting him in the highest tier. Is that crazy?
He's also 75.
All right.
And anybody.
Joe Biden's president.
Ben Johnson, Vrabel, Flores, all these guys could be the coach for 10 to 15 years. Pete Carroll can't.
You know what's crazy is Mike what's his face? McCarthy has a better record than. I know it's very close. Pete Carroll's 170 and 120. And he should have 2 Super Bowls. But again, Pete Carroll won the Super Bowls one way with the defense. Then you come back. Also, he went to the Super Bowl with the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. But won the Super Bowl one way with Russell Wilson, Legion of Boom defense. Then remolded the team where Russell Wilson was throwing 40 touchdowns a year. Then completely rebuilt, and you have Geno Smith making the Pro Bowl year after year. Like, 100% hire him today. Why not? Okay. If you don't get Vrabel,
we'll leave him there for now.
What's the argument against? Because that he's old is very fair. That's a real argument.
Yeah, that's it. And maybe that's unfair. Maybe that's
because I would have put Belichick in the S tier also.
Is that HIPAA if I age discrimination against Pete Carroll? I don't mean to, but Todd Monken, Mike, Ravens offense is great. They run the ball better than any team in the NFL.
They did though before that, but now Lamar Jackson is having probably the greatest passing season in NFL history, which is insane.
Well, where would you put him, given that they did bring him in 2019 and did not hire him and took Adam Gase over him?
You know what happened the last time the Jets hired a coach who was affiliated with the then greatest passing season in the history of football?
Talk to me.
It was Adam Gase, who was coaching Peyton Manning in 2013. But I believe it was also Todd Monken who had the Bucs throwing for 5,000 yards with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. Another unproven offensive coordinator. If you take an offensive coordinator who has one of the best offenses the league has ever seen, I'm not going to sit here and kill you. Maybe it makes more sense to take him to hire him if you're going to draft a guy like Jalen Milroe, who fits similarly to Lamar Jackson in some kind of system. So, very interesting guy. Not going to kill them if you hire a very successful coordinator as your head coach for the first time, but not my cup of tea. I'd rather have John Gruden doing Chucky shit and talking about spider bananas.
I like Gruden. I like Monken in the B tier.
Yeah.
And I want to make the argument now that we put 2 former Jets in the A tier. We put Rex Ryan there, and we bring up Aaron Glenn. Because something about Aaron Glenn, like, it'd be very cool if he came back. And I think I'd be like thrilled with Aaron Glenn. Now that I kind of look at how this is forming.
All right, listen. No,
talk to me.
that's not crazy. That is I just look at his track record, and he's also coaching with a defensive head coach in Detroit, and they have not had a lot of defensive success. So that scares me, because then what is he bringing to the table?
I'm trying to find that distribution though. I want to find that nice little 3-3-4-4-2.
Matt, it's not a DEI list. We need to just put things where they actually are supposed to be.
No, but it's not. It's like actually like a normal distribution curve.
Yeah, but there could be guys that we would be thrilled about, and then guys that we hate, and there could be no one in between. It just
that's the hard part of doing a tier list. You have to balance out. Like,
I completely disagree with you. I don't understand that.
We're not doing a power. Like, we're doing a point of a tier list to make a tough decision of who to put in what tier.
Yeah, but what if like one tier fits one guy great? It doesn't mean that other guys have to be there. This is pretty well distributed, by the way.
No, that's all I'm saying. I like how we're building this out.
It's pretty well distributed. What about this, Matt? What if Belichick was here? Where would you put him?
I put Belichick in S tier.
Me too. That's why I have Pete Carroll in the S tier. I think it's
unfair.
The same thing.
It hurts my logic before about him being old, but my brain just works in mysterious ways. Yeah. So
listen, Matt, the main issues the Jets have this year, in my opinion, are toughness, run defense, which also stems from toughness, situational football, and discipline. So if you hire the right coach, it doesn't feel like talent is the main issue with the Jets. So if you hire the right coach, there's a very clear path to a quick turnaround for this team. Another reason I favor some of the older coaches, I think there's more of a chance that they keep Aaron Rodgers for next year and try to win. If you hire, Pete Carroll, it's hard to kick the can down the road. So, and we've talked about it on the show before, the Jets are not. I do not think the Jets are in a position to rebuild. You already have most of your team.
Yeah.
So if you're going to rebuild, fine, but then you got to just blow the whole thing up.
But for you, Rex Ryan's A tier.
I would love if they hire Rex Ryan, so that would mean yes, A tier.
You would want Pete Carroll, Ben Johnson, and Mike Vrabel over him.
Yes.
Okay. That's where I'm trying to find.
And I would have Rex in front of Brian Flores.
Okay, that's fair.
But it's though again, Brian Flores like number 2 ranked defense this year in football, and Rex is on ESPN. So
that's the other thing. Like Flores, the output's there. So I'm fine with however we want to play it out. I'm very excited when we tweet out this graphic, because I think people will see the top row and they're going to say bang, bang, no to Pete Carroll being that high.
Which is insane. I'll debate anybody about Pete Carroll.
50-50. People are going to love that we have Rex in the A tier. The other 50 is going to hate it. People are I think higher on Flores the most. I think people are going to think Aaron Glenn is too high. I think people are going to think Gruden, McCarthy are both too high, and that Monken and Cohen are too low because they value the next thing and not a retread head coach.
Which might be right. Maybe one of these guys is unbelievable, but if not, you're just fucked.
I don't think anyone's gonna have a problem with C and D tier. Maybe they want Bobby Slowick to be up higher. I think that's the only complaint we'd ever see about the lower tiers. But
there might be someone who wants Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, we did put him in the upper echelon of C tier.
I think it's well ranked, that part, but I could see it. Would you rather maybe we could put McCarthy over Gruden?
I think that's fair. Definitely fair.
Man, should we flip Flores and Rex back? Because it is unfair if Rex hasn't been he hasn't been in the league.
I like Flores, and I think I'd be happier with Rex over Glenn.
How cool would that be if we got Rex? Who knows what they're going to do?
This is cool. I like it.
Exciting.
Do we want to name them real quick? Like elite, great, like our reaction to that hiring.
Right.
What do we think?
Oh, wow. What would our reaction be?
Like Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is fucking playoffs. This is playoff win. Like we're gonna win a playoff game with them.
Yeah.
This is we're going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I like that.
This is
God knows.
Borderline 500. Like you never know.
Yeah.
And then this is feels like a bust.
Yeah.
Let me take a screenshot of this now, so I
like this. Right? This is not bad.
Oh, people are gonna be so mad. I can't wait.
Well, should we name? I agree with the names of the categories, but is every single comment going to be like, we're not making the playoffs?
You're right. Let's do S, A,
Yeah.
B.
Because that's going to be every single comment.
No thanks. You're very right about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at it.
And then let people actually discuss it. Not bad, Matt.
Are you going to be ready?
I think I would be happy with like any of the top 6 or 7 guys.
I know, and they just need to fucking do it. And if they don't, we're gonna be very upset. Hey,
it is gonna be tough if we don't have Vrabel though.
Quality video. If you made it this far, DM us on Twitter. We'll make sure to follow you back. We can add you to the Discord that we never use.
Oh yeah.
As always, I'm gonna run and get dinner.
Get dinner. Do not let people bully you into not wanting Hall of Fame Pete Carroll as your head coach, Matt.
Wait.
Don't let it happen.
I will say this: I didn't want to put Pete Carroll on the S tier. I thought he was gonna be an A tier guy. I am all on board with Pete Carroll. I'm gonna make. You know what? I might say right now, I would put Pete Carroll ahead of Ben Johnson, which is probably a very unpopular take, but you and I always see eye to eye on it.
Let's go. I'll take him. Who knows? Ben Johnson could literally be Adam Gase.
I also would love for Pete Carroll to come here, be a head coach for 4 or 5 years, and have a young coordinator that becomes great and have like an easy transition like every other perfect franchise seems to do.
Yeah.
And then you're the Patriots where, hey, extend Gerard Mayo.
Nice.
Don't let them fire Gerard Mayo and take Vrabel. That'd be not fun. All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Good work.